So fun things, fun things. The title of the message is kind of fun right off the bat. I'm calling this message, Comfort Kills. Doesn't that sound like a hoot of a message? Aren't you already stoked about this one? And the reason that came to mind was recently we did a bath experience that has, if you ever heard of the Air Ancient Baths in Chicago, they have like 19 different hot tubs and cold tubs, but they have a very hot tub next to a very cold pool, like cold plunge type thing. And it's kind of funny. Where you go there, the whole point is relaxation. But then why is there a cold pool? Because that's not relaxing even a little bit. And one of the games that we play at this place is you sit in the hot tub and then you just go neck deep in this literal ice water and you just hang out there for as long as you can. And we stayed in there for 2 minutes and I thought I was going to die. And like it actually felt like I had to like creak my arms back open afterwards. Like I felt like I was dying, freezing to death. And it's funny, you think, why do people do this? And cold plunging and cold baths and showers has really kind of been on the rise. Why do people do this? Well, the science behind it has developed quite dramatically to show that it releases things called cold shock proteins. Cold shock proteins are things your body releases to protect you against this bitter cold. And when these things are released, it has a lot of positive effects on your health and on your body. And it's kind of the counter to the study of saunas and steam rooms, where extreme heat is something that people have always done for a long time. Even in Frozen, we talk about Oaken with the Svets, right? The holiday Svets, where he sits in his sauna and just is get really, really warm. But they showed how people who use saunas for like 20 minutes a day or a week or something, the unbelievable health benefits that come from that, because in extreme heat, you release something called heat shock proteins that are really good for your body. So if extreme cold is really good for your body and extreme heat is really good for your body, then the real killer out there is room temperature. That's the real killer. That's the thing we all need to be concerned about. Right now, our health is not improving in this temperature, but it would if we were uncomfortably cold or uncomfortably hot. And this is where we get to how comfort actually can be something that is of the least benefit to us. So another thing, comfort food. Anyone ever heard of that? How many people know that comfort food is usually notorious for being very unhealthy? It's good for the soul, but it's not good for the body. And you could say, well, it's good for the soul. That's great. But also, eventually, if all I eat is comfort food, if I only eat my burgers and fries and my mac and cheese, my chicken and waffles, my pizza, my ice cream, and my biscuits and gravy, that might cut a couple years off of my lifespan. Sounds real good, though, doesn't it? Already, I hear the drool hitting the floor. And I can't help it. It's so comforting to eat these foods, but they are not good for me. And in the same way, exercise is uncomfortable. Would anybody ever call exercise comfortable? Like, y'all ever do yoga? Like, it's really like the practice of becoming uncomfortable. And then let's be uncomfortable this way. And let's be uncomfortable this way. It's just, that's the whole point, is stretching beyond what's comfortable. Lifting weights, long squats, planks, not comfortable. You ever, let's kind of change up the argument a little bit here too. There was an old friend of mine and I had a disagreement, a little bit of conflict, and it was very uncomfortable. And I said, hey, I would really like to talk about this, because I feel like if we could just talk this out, if we just get through this uncomfortable conversation, then we can actually be friends again. And we can put it behind us, we can learn about each other, and we can grow closer together, and we can have an even stronger friendship. But that friend had a feeling that that conversation would be uncomfortable, and it would be more comfortable just to not talk about it and to just never see each other again. So you could say, well, they just wanted to do the thing that was comfortable, but in that case, I would say that comfort killed that relationship. The pursuit of comfort led to the avoidance of the thing that would have actually brought healing and growth and strength and maturity. Let's take a hypothetical man. Let's call him Greg. He's 23 years old, living with his parents. He's got video games, free food, the internet, and his parents' credit card. And life could not get any more comfortable for Greg. But in this case, comfort kills, and I would say, your potential. You have a whole destiny, a future, a person that you could become, but you have no motivation to leave the house. You already have everything you need, and your comfort is actually keeping you inside of this big, soft, cozy bubble that is preventing you from actually becoming who you need to become. So in that case, comfort kills your future, your destiny, your potential. So while discomfort is by definition uncomfortable, it's something we tend to avoid, but discomfort, on the other side of discomfort, you may say, well, I don't want to be uncomfortable. But if we would press through the discomfort, why would we endure this? Because on the other side of that discomfort, there are things like health, strength, peace, wisdom, character, fulfillment, and often, love this, greater levels of comfort. So some of the way to be the most comfortable is to be uncomfortable for a little bit so you can be more comfortable. Isn't that kind of funny? So sometimes when we avoid discomfort, we are also avoiding health, strength, peace, wisdom, character, fulfillment, and often greater levels of comfort. So I just want us to pause and understand this. And we're going to, again, continue to press into this, talk about the biblical support for this. But a lot of times we'll be praying God for, hey, God, I want a healthier family. I want a healthier body. I want to know more. I want opportunities, God. But oftentimes to access those things requires us to go through some discomfort. But sometimes we look at the discomfort and say, well, if it's uncomfortable, it must not be God. So let's just go back to the couch and try again tomorrow. But what if the opportunity's been there the whole time? It just involves you having to press through something a little uncomfortable. So let's go to Romans 5, 3-4. I love this verse so much. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings. What? Glory being like, wow, amazing. That's something worth looking at and celebrating. And we're looking at suffering this way. Why would we glory in our sufferings? Because of what suffering produces. What does suffering produce? Suffering produces perseverance. Okay, well then what? Well, perseverance produces character. Well, and then what? Character produces hope. And if you think about, if you've spent any time in suffering, you know that hope is a very precious commodity. I've been in this hard thing. It's been really hard. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's just harder, and it feels like it gets harder and harder every single day. And I feel like I'm in this endless spiraling abyss into this black hole of nothing, and there is no way out. The one thing we need more than anything when we are really suffering in that way is hope. And how do we get that hope? Well, the first thing is when we're suffering, persevere. And what does persevere mean? It means even though I am suffering, I will continue. And even if I don't even know, even if I still don't see the light, I'm still going to step forward and I'm going to press onward. I'm going to do my best. And when we can do that for a little while, we start to develop character. Because if you've ever spent time in suffering, not all suffering produces character, but it creates the opportunity to do so. For instance, if I'm suffering, I could just say, oh, this is the worst, and I could just take the hits, and I could just watch my body decay, and I could just struggle and suffer through something that's agitating me, or I can be around the person or the situation that irritates me, and I can just sit there and hate it the whole time. And you're persevering, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're building character. What character is the mental and moral qualities of an individual. The quality of yourself in some ways. Character can be strengthened, it can be refined, it can be improved. So a character is we're sitting there suffering, but then our character says, maybe I can change in a way that would reduce the suffering. Or maybe I can learn something new that would help me change the situation here to where it creates less suffering. And what we do is when we spend time in it, we realize, damn, this is bad, but, and let's take that cold plunge, for example. I can do the cold plunge, and I could say, this is uncomfortable. I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, and I will eventually just keep leaving it, and I can do it every day. But a person that's trying to develop character gets in that cold plunge and says, hey, don't think about it. Center your mind. Do deep breathing. Focus on something else. Think about your arms. Grip your hands. If you clench your hands nice and tight, you'll think about something else. Or repeat something, whatever it is. There's techniques. There's things I can do to lessen my suffering or strengthen my resolve or my endurance. That's the character part. The character part is what we learn when we are in the suffering. And if we don't persevere and stay in the suffering long enough to learn from it, then it's just pointless suffering. So if you're suffering, you may as well build character because that's the only way to improve it. Because if we never build character, we never get to that third step, and that's hope. Because if I can get in there and I can learn how to endure this, now I suddenly have hope. Like, I can get through this. I'm not going to die here. I do see a light at the end of the tunnel. I can strengthen myself. I can change things. There's certain people that would say, everybody in my life leaves me. And every time they connect to somebody, things start to go a certain way. They see the signs and they say, this person's going to leave me too. I have no hope that anybody that I ever am in a relationship will ever stick around and actually love me. But if we try again, if we stop saying, well, it's uncomfortable to be in a relationship with anybody, well, you're never going to learn how to do it right if you never endure it for a little bit, put yourself back in the cold plunge or back into the fire and say, okay, what can I learn from this? Okay, well, first thing that happens is that my mind starts going crazy and I start thinking things that they never said, but I assume they think is true. Is that true? No, maybe I can change that about myself. And then maybe if I reframe my mind, or if I get better about communicating instead of just making assumptions in my head, then maybe we can strengthen the relationship. And after a while, we learn things, we talk about things, we develop character and strategy to the point where now we start to think, oh, this might actually work. Like, now that I have grown and learned from this suffering and this difficult thing that I've been doing, maybe I can actually learn how to make it strong and healthy. And maybe this will be a relationship that doesn't end like all the other ones. But if we never stay in it long enough to learn from it, then we'll never get a better outcome. So I think about when I was a kid, I tried and failed every sport. I was a kid who really liked comfort. I was the type to avoid chores, avoid trying too hard in class, avoid making friends. I was so content just to sit by myself with a video game or frankly with nothing. I could just sit in a room by myself and just happy as could be, no problems. So anything to me looked like discomfort. So I decided one day, my parents basically said, you need to be in a sport, any sport. Pick your sport. It could be ping pong. It could be ice skating. I don't care. Just pick a sport. So they, Blades of Glory. So they said, pick anything. So I'm like, okay, well, let's try T-ball. T-ball can't be that hard. I struck out at T-ball. I could not hit the ball that was sitting stationary in front of me. Could not quite line that up. And it was a bad time. So then we're like, okay, well, let's try hockey. I get a puck to the knee, and I said, I'm out, never again, too much pain. I try soccer, and that's a lot of running. Once up and down the field, I got a cramp. I got to sit on the side for a little bit. Just too much discomfort. This is hard. Basketball, playing basketball, shoot the hoop, bounces off the rim, smacks me in the face. No, this is uncomfortable. I don't like this. And I just kept avoiding every sport that I tried to the point where I was almost out of sports, and the only one left was the most uncomfortable one, and that's football. Football is you're going to get hit a lot all the time, and that is the game. So sounds like fun, but I was out of options. So football it was. And the first day with pads, at first you're just running sprints back and forth, and I didn't enjoy much of that. But then we get to the point where you have pads on, and now it's like, now we're going to get to the contact side of football, because if you can't make contact in football, you cannot play football. So we sit there and I'm like, well, I got all these pads on, that'll keep me safe. And then I just get hit square in the chest and just like right on the ground. I'm out. If you've ever had the wind knocked out of you, it was the most terrifying experiences of my life. I'm like, I can't breathe. I'm going to die. Like, this is the end. I'm just going to it's all going to fade to black right now. And it took me a while to eventually catch my breath. And I said, Mom and Dad, too uncomfortable. No way. I don't like this at all. People just keep hitting me and I don't like it. And I want out. And they said, nope, we already paid your tuition. We paid for your pads. We did the whole thing. You will stay in this sport for the rest of the season. I said, but I don't want to. And I said, why would I have to just keep doing this whole season? And the answer that I hated so much was my dad saying, it's going to build character, Danny. I said, I don't want character. Like, that sounds terrible. What a stupid thing to gain. I would rather just not be hit a bunch. And then you think, though, about this, and it's kind of funny on the other side, where I have to admit, it built my character. It was suffering. I was just getting hit again and again and again. I had to run and I hated it. And I was not an athletic kid. I was kind of more just like shuffling down the field. I was the type of kid that they had to put a stripe on your helmet if you were heavier than the other kids, because it was an unfair advantage to be so heavy in playing against, middle schoolers. And I had 2 stripes on my head. because I was so much bigger than the other kids. I could just like, bam, and then I blocked my defender. So I was not a healthy kid. And then, day one, they're like, we're going to run a mile as part of our training. I'm like, I cannot walk a mile. Like we need a different exercise for Danny. But in all of the suffering and the trials and the hurting and the striving and the workouts and all of this, it did in fact build character. I learned, okay, well, if I get a little better at the sprinting, if I do it enough times, maybe I won't hate it as much. Maybe I could be someone who actually enjoys sprinting. And maybe if I keep playing this game and I get better at being the one to hit people and not being the one to get hit, maybe that'll be more fun. Maybe it'll be more fun if I'm the one causing the pain and not just receiving it. And maybe if I get really skilled at it and we win, the feeling of winning will feel really good. It'll make me want to play it more. And I think about how in my first practice with pads, I wanted to quit football. But my parents said, stay in it. It will build character. You might even learn to love it. And after that first year, I ended up playing football for 7 years. And in 3 of those years, I was on an undefeated team as a starter, which means I got pretty good. I was a lineman. I'm not, we're not, on ESPN. I'm just sitting up there trying to keep people from tackling my guys. But that's what receivers do. But I got pretty good at it. And in fact, I became somebody that was good at handling suffering, that had a strength of character, and actually brought hope. I was the kind of person where if this kid's on our team, we have a hope of winning this game because he's good at this kind of suffering. He's spent enough time suffering and running and getting hit that he knows how to stay in this fight, and he knows how to not just stay in it, but he knows how to win it. He knows how to persevere. He has character and qualities that are useful inside of the suffering, and we have hope whenever he's around. So in whatever situation that you're in, whatever kind of suffering that you're in, the hope is that the suffering strengthens us to the point where we can be people that bring hope and healing to a place where other people are still suffering. And that we can take something that used to be pain for us and turn that into strength. And I think a good way to think about this is that strength is not grown through encouragement. Strength does not come from intelligence. Strength does not come from just having a good day or from being very motivated. Strength comes from resistance. Something has to be pushing against me, and I have to push back. That is where we build strength. I think that's true for our muscles, that's true for our minds, that's true for our emotions, and that's true for our faith. Our faith is not just grown by learning. Our faith is grown when we have to use it in a way that is uncomfortable. Because it's when our faith is tested, that's also the same way that our faith is proven. Our faith gets stronger when we push back against something. And I want to think about a couple examples here. It's pretty comfortable to have faith for a good lunch. I believe, God, give me a great lunch. I want a yummy lunch that's good for my body. I can believe for that. I have faith for that. It is uncomfortable to have faith that God will reconcile my broken family. That's a little bit harder. I might say, day 1, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to persevere. We get to the end of the day, no visible change. I got to do it again? Okay, day 2, I'm going to believe, I'm going to pray, I'm going to read books, I'm going to watch videos, I'm going to get better at this thing, no change. Day 3, really? Okay, let's keep going. And then we get to week 3, then we get to month 3, then we get to year 3. Are you still in the fight? Are you still persevering? Are you still learning and growing? Now we have to really press up against something that's really heavy and difficult. But I believe that's also where we build strength. It's uncomfortable to believe God for $1 million building. But here we are. But our faith as a church has never been tested more than when we had to believe God for more than we ever have before. Is it comfortable? It can be comfortable to pray for someone to be healed. God bless you. You're going to be healed. All right, I'm going to go home and have that lunch I prayed about. It is uncomfortable to contend with someone in their healing until they are healed. Day 3, day 5, month 5, year 5, contending, continuing to persevere, continuing to ask God for more, continue to believe even when things don't go the way that you wanted to. That kind of resistance is how we actually build strength in our faith. But it's uncomfortable to have to keep praying the same prayer over and over again. And sometimes it can feel hopeless. Right, but how does hope come? When we persevere and when we build character in the struggle, in the discomfort, until we see that hope. So most of the time, what we don't need to grow is comfort. We need discomfort. I think about I'll come back to that. I got fun stuff, but I'm going to watch time. So have you guys ever heard of the hero's journey? Are you guys familiar with that verbiage, that context? So I have a graph for this. So the hero's journey, in every movie you've ever seen and liked, this is the story. This is how story works. You have a hero at the beginning of the journey. They're in their comfort zone. Everything's fine. Everything's going great. They feel this call to adventure. I need to go do something. And then they have to cross this threshold from the comfort zone into discomfort. It's not comfy anymore. Or they go from the known into the unknown. I don't know how to succeed in this new environment, but I know I must go to it. And sometimes crossing the threshold is voluntary, and sometimes it is involuntary. Sometimes we decide to walk into something very difficult and unknown, and sometimes we are thrown into the unknown, thrown right into the deep end and forced to overcome. But no matter what it is, whether voluntary or involuntary, we press out of our comfort zone into discomfort. And then usually we experience a descent. And this is why we have to persevere, is because the first part of every story, once they're into the unknown, is I get smacked, I get beat, I fail, I fall flat on my face, nothing goes right, everyone tells me I can't do it, and there's no hope for me no matter what I do. That's the descent. Things just feel like they're getting worse and worse and worse, and all I'm doing is failing and falling and messing it up until we get to the abyss, which is the rock bottom, some may call it. This is where the dragon lives. This is the deepest, darkest cave. This is where I feel like there is no way I will ever get out of this. I cannot do it. But often, it is not often, always, it is in the abyss that we find the treasure. It is under the dragon's belly. It is in the deepest fire. It is in the deepest cave that we find this treasure. And this can be a literal treasure, or this could be a metaphorical treasure, a treasure of character. And when we find that, we begin our ascent. And the ascent is because of what I learned in the abyss, I am now capable of winning the things that I could not before. The things that overcame me, now because I learned something here in the deep, dark abyss, now I can overcome the thing that used to overcome me. And now we rise until the place where we return to a place of comfort. But we return to the comfort zone here with some new treasure we did not have before. And that creates a better normal. Now the environment and the hero are better for the journey just because they had done this. And usually, you know what happens next? There's a new discomfort. There's a new call. There's a new layer of understanding, a new challenge, a new struggle, a new need, a new problem that has to be solved, and someone has to do it. And we need a hero, someone who can champion us to bring hope to the people who are struggling and find a way to overcome the abyss and bring back some new tool, some new thing that's going to help us overcome this problem. What I would say, to use the language of our first verse there, I would say that the descent here is the perseverance. The trial is the crossing of the threshold. It's the call to adventure. The trial is saying, go do something difficult. The perseverance is the descent. No matter how hard it gets, I will press on. No matter how many times I fail, I will get back up again. I will try again. That's the descent, the descent, the descent. In the abyss is where we find character. And when we find character, when we learn something new, we begin to ascend. Things start to get better. Even though the struggle has not changed, the difficulty, the problem is the same as it was before, I'm getting better at it. And as I have my character, that creates this ascent until we're back to a place of normal. And that's where, on the ascent is where we find hope, right? So the trials, the adventure produces a need to persevere through the descent. But then we find character in the abyss that gives us hope as we ascend back to a place of peace, to a place of healing, to a place where we got what we needed. This is the hero's journey. And this is Samwise Gamgee crossing the threshold in The Lord of the Rings saying, "Oh, Mr. Frodo, if I take one more step, I'll be the farthest I've ever been away from home." Right, cross the threshold from known into unknown so that we can go on an adventure. And if you've ever seen Lord of the Rings, the Shire, where they begin their story, looks like paradise. It's beautiful. It's very comfortable. In fact, it is a vacation destination in New Zealand if you'd like to go to it. It's a real place now. But the Shire is comfortable. But the only way to save it is to leave it, to endure something difficult and come back and rescue it, to create a better normal. Because if you know the Lord of the Rings, if they never left the Shire would have burned to the ground. If they stayed in their comfort zone, it would have destroyed everything that they knew. Comfort would have killed their home and led to loss and death of themselves had they not been willing to press through the discomfort to go and gain something of value that would bring hope to their people. You could say in The Lion King, Simba is thrust from his kingdom. That was not a voluntary decision for him to say, "I'm going to go out in the desert, make some pals, learn how to be a king, and then I'll come back." He was thrown there and removed forcibly from his kingdom. But it was still a voluntary decision to overcome, to face the abyss, to learn and gain his character, and then return back to create a better normal for his home. In another story, there's a friend of mine who had to suffer through sexual abuse as a child. That was not a voluntary decision. However, they chose the hero's path. They said, despite the fact that I did not choose to be in this land of unknown and extreme discomfort, I'm going to persevere. I'm going to find character. I'm going to find a way to heal from this, how to advocate for myself, how to bring justice and how to correct things that are wrong, how to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else. I'm going to develop character that will allow me to come back from this and, in fact, come back stronger. To now, I'm not just someone who's healthy and healed and whole, but I learned things in the depths and the abyss that's going to keep other people from having to go through the same suffering. Or someone who's still in this same suffering, I can now be a wise guide that helps this person come back from there. And what comes to mind in that sense is in Revelations, I believe it's 1:18, it talks about how Jesus holds the keys of death and Hades. So Jesus has the keys of hell. How does he have the keys of hell? Well, he had to go there and get them. But once he was there, it's a really good thing he came back with the keys. Because now that he's been there and come back, we don't have to. So if you ever find yourself in any particular corner of hell, in any particular jail cell with a big old door, and you don't know how to have the keys, and you're just stuck in this hell that you're experiencing, whether it's trauma or abuse or a weight struggle or family issues or an awful job or fear of having to step out and make the art you want to make, whatever it is, if you're just stuck there suffering like, this is hell, I hate this, and I don't have the keys, well then, one, while you're there, find the keys. Find a way out. Find a way not just to remain in this hell forever, but to say, Jesus, what can you teach me? How can you train me and encourage me and strengthen me so that I can find my way out of here? Because you have the keys of death and Hades. So you know the way out of here. Jesus, how can you strengthen me so I can get out of here? And then when you find your way back out and you found the keys, make sure you give them to somebody else. Because somebody else is struggling with that same thing that you used to struggle with, and they don't have the keys. They can search around in the dark and keep looking for them, or you can say, hey, I see you. I know what you're going through. I have been where you have been. Can I tell you? I found the keys. The keys is actually humility. You hadn't thought of that yet. You haven't been in here long enough to think about that. The keys is actually courage. You know what to do. You're just not brave enough to do it. That's the key out of here. The key is actually help. You can't do this alone. You have to reach out to other people or you're going to stay here forever. I've been here. I know. I have the keys. Do you want the keys? You can get out of here. You really can. That's a person who has hope. That's a person who offers hope. Why? Because they've been through the trial. They've persevered long enough to gain the keys, the character that they needed to allow them to bring hope for themselves and also to offer hope to others. So whether you find yourself in hell by choice or not by choice, as long as you're there, find the keys. If you can't find the keys, find someone else who has them. And once you have them, give them to somebody else. They need them. You're not the first person to struggle with this. And I love it too. There's another I don't have it with me. But there's another verse basically saying if you suffer from something, it's because no one's really suffering from anything new. It's kind of the nothing new under the sun idea. Whatever your struggle is, somebody else has gone through it before, which means somebody else will go through it again. So if you're there, find the keys. Find the way out because somebody else will need that. So I want to just kind of make this clear for you. Your next step is not a comfortable one. That is just about a promise. Whatever your next step of growth and development is, it is not a comfortable step. And again, a lot of people will say, they'll look at saying, well, I need to do this thing. I need to make this art. I need to write a musical. I need to, start this business. I need to change my career. Whatever it is, they say, oh, it sounds discomforting, though. It sounds very uncomfortable. I guess that must not be God. And then we don't do it because it's because it's uncomfortable. But what if that's actually the way forward? Discomfort is actually the pathway to the thing that we need the most. Because that's where our treasure lies. That's where it is. So I think about James 1, 2, and 4, where he says, consider pure joy, brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. You're in hell right now? Praise the Lord. Oh my, you're going through some really hard times? You're hopeless? Yes, Jesus. All right. Why are we considering it joy? Because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Wait, we just heard about perseverance in Romans 5. What does that create? Character and hope. It says you are on a hero's journey. All the stories that you love to hear about, all the heroes that you admire, and you say, wow, I love Iron Man, I love Simba, I love Batman. Look at all these heroes. What cool people. You can have joy when you're struggling because you're becoming like them. You're becoming a hero. You're becoming someone of character that can bring hope and healing to the world. Praise God. You're growing. It's uncomfortable, but that's great. And this perseverance that leads to character and hope. Here it says, perseverance, when it finishes its work, when you're done persevering. You don't have to persevere forever, hopefully. But when you persevere long enough and you get to that character and hope, when it finishes its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Do you want to be mature and complete, not lacking anything? That's going to take some discomfort. And I shouldn't assume everybody wants that. Because some people are like, I don't need to be mature or complete, and I'm okay lacking a few things because I'm actually quite cozy where I am. Here's the problem. That also leads to discomfort. So good. Sorry, bearer of bad news there. You can choose discomfort in the form of perseverance that will create maturity, or you can become subject to discomfort because you refuse to go on the journey voluntarily. Well, that just means you'll be thrust into it, whether you like it or not. I think of John 16:33, where Jesus says, I have told you these things so that you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So you might say, I don't want to be uncomfortable. Too bad, everybody does. Everybody gets discomfort. There is no avoiding it. There's only the discomfort you choose or the discomfort you don't choose, but no matter what, discomfort is guaranteed. So you can suffer from discomfort in a way that destroys you, which by the way is the villain's journey, or you can look at discomfort and say, I will overcome. The way that Jesus says, I have overcome the world, if I am to imitate Christ, I will do the same. I will persevere, I will develop character, and I will bring hope to people. I will develop maturity in the face of difficult things, and I will become complete, not lacking in anything. I will let the suffering, if the suffering's guaranteed, I may as well become a hero. Because the only other option is become dead or a villain. So of those three options, I'm going to choose to become a hero. Suffering is not an option. It's something we will all endure, but let's use it for our growth, rather than just complain about it or cause us to become bitter. C.S. Lewis has a quote that I love. He says, in religion, as in war and everything else, comfort is the one thing you cannot get by looking for it. Meaning if you only seek comfort, you will not find comfort. But he says if you look for truth, and in this case I'm going to say righteousness, and by righteousness I mean doing what's right. If you look to do what's right, you may find comfort in the end, like we saw in the hero's journey. It leads to more comfort, better comfort at the end. If you look to do what's right, you may find comfort in the end. But if you look only for comfort, you will not get either comfort or truth, or righteousness, or maturity, or completeness, or lack of lack. Only soft soap and wishful thinking to begin with, and in the end, despair. Because if we don't take the hero's journey in the midst of our suffering, we never get to the character and the hope. And if we never get to the hope, we suffer, but all we have is despair. So you may as well choose productive suffering. Hebrews 12:11 says, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Pain. But later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness, meaning things made right and people made right, and peace for those who have been trained by it. If we all have to suffer, why don't we suffer for something and not just suffer from something? We're not the victims. We are the heroes of this story. Jesus was our hero. The reason the cross is in fact a symbol of suffering, but it's also a symbol, more importantly, of overcoming suffering. Saying, even in this, I have overcome. This did not lead to my death. This led to righteousness, to freedom, to liberation. Good things came of this. And you think about, if we don't develop this character, then we never get to the place of hope. And I wonder if that's why so many young people today are hopeless, is because maybe they've been too comfortable. Maybe as parents, we've longed to preserve them and protect them and give them what they needed and make sure that they're always comfortable. But in doing so, we've created a hopeless generation because they don't know how to overcome things themselves. Why? Because we've been so concerned about their comfort that we created the problem of character not being developed. They haven't faced suffering enough to now they're looking at the big problems of the world thinking, how in the heck are we going to solve this problem? We don't have the character it takes to overcome this. I don't have hope that we can figure this out. Maybe a little bit of suffering, not just comforting, not removing from pain, but learning, let's overcome this together. Let me get into the suffering with you. I'm not going to take it away, but you're going to learn how to overcome it. I remember it being a terrible day when I ran out of money and I had nothing after college. It was a bad day. But mom and dad did not say, oh, that sounds uncomfortable. Here's some money. They said, yeah, you're out of money. You're rock bottom. You're in the abyss. How are you going to get out of this? I'll help you. We've been here too. I can tell you things about how to escape this hell that you're in, but you have to do it because you need the character to overcome this. And if I do it for you, you just suffer, but then you actually go backwards, back up to the same place. And someday you're just going to have to do it again. And if you never get to the character part, you're just going to keep suffering and suffering and suffering and never getting through, pushing through to the point of character that brings hope. So last thing I want to read is Romans 8:17 through 21. Let this be the rallying cry of God's people. When we look at suffering, Jesus saw lots of suffering, but he didn't say, that looks tough, let's go take a nap. He said, what do we do about it? How can I help? How can I be of service to those who are suffering? His time was spent with those who were suffering the most because he's a symbol of overcoming suffering. So when we see suffering, I want us to think about it like it says in Romans 8:17 through 21. Now, if we are children, then we are heirs. Royalty. So that means we have the privilege of doing nothing while other people serve us. No, not in God's kingdom. We're heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ if indeed we share in his sufferings in order that we may also share in his glory. Bad kings get glory when other people suffer on their behalf. God gets glory when we suffer ourselves. If we share in his suffering, we also share in his glory. We choose to press into it. And then in verse 18, I consider that our present sufferings are not even worth comparing to the glory that will be revealed in us. Yeah, we're in suffering, but we're going to get character. We're going to get hope. Rejoice in your suffering because you're becoming the kind of person this world needs. In verse 19, for the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God, that's us, to be revealed. For the creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the freedom and glory of the children of God. Creation is suffering and it does not want to be the way it is. Creation does not want to be how it is right now, but it is. People want comfort and they keep striving and leaning and grabbing onto it, but it keeps leading to more discomfort. Why? Because here in the church, the children of God, the co-heirs of Jesus Christ, know that it's in the suffering that we find a way to overcome it. And all of creation is saying, we need these heroes, these children of God that are supposed to come and bring us freedom, liberation from bondage and decay. We're waiting on you guys. Who's going to step into the suffering with us? Who's going to teach us not just how to endure it, but how to overcome it? Who's going to bring us this hope that we so desperately need? That's us. That's the family of God. So when we look at our suffering, we need to see it as an opportunity to become who we are called to be. Discomfort is not a sign of God's disapproval with us. Discomfort is not always the product of our own wrong choices. Sometimes the enemy tempts us and sometimes God tests us, and it's actually the same word in Greek because both of them produce an opportunity for somebody to become better, to pass the test. So whether it's from the enemy, whether it's from God, or whether it's just a state of the natural world, whatever the suffering is, overcome it. The response is the same, no matter what. Overcome. Find strength. Find character. If you're in the abyss, you will not stay there forever. I promise you. You will find the keys. You have Jesus Christ, who knows that He's the way, the truth, and the life. He will tell you out of there. He has the keys to death and Hades. So if you're suffering, persevere. Don't quit. Don't quit yet. Because if you persevere long enough, we get to the next step. If you're persevering, build character. Don't just persevere forever. Learn something. Become better. Strengthen yourself in the struggle. And then when you have character, now you carry hope. Share it with everybody that you can. If you find yourself in hell, don't come back without the keys. Because how are we going to liberate the world and set them free from bondage if we don't have the keys to their locks? We need these keys. The known and unknown universe is crying out for the children of God to get this, to understand that us becoming the representation of Jesus Christ is through suffering. Even Christ himself was not fully on display of who he really was until after he went through the cross. Before that, yeah, he was great. But after his death and the descent into the abyss and came back, now he's the hero of all time. Now he's the true Christ. We all have a cross to bear. We all have a suffering or a struggle that we must endure to become who we are called to be. So don't look at suffering as something to be avoided. Look at it as something to be overcome. Press into it because your discomfort is the key to your next step. So be brave, have faith, and choose to overcome until you find the keys and can bring them back to bring freedom and liberation to a world that desperately needs it. Yeah.
I know that's not necessarily a message you want to clap at the end of.
Yay,
I get it, if that's how you feel.
Pain.
I get it.
Yep.
So good, though. Really quick, I'll have you share this word, and then I have a quick word as we close.
So at 3:08 this morning, I didn't know what Danny was going to preach. But I was talking to the Lord in my journal. And the Lord said this to me. He said, overthinking, tension, and anxiety block you from hearing me. Like when your muscles are too tense, you have to relax. Relax, son. My voice is present. Relax and trust me. Believe that I am here. Believe that I love you. And believe that I'm willing to speak to you. Rest in me. I said, Father, speak to my heart whatever you want to say. Listen to what he said. And once again, I did not know what Danny's message was. The Lord said, peace keeps you. And he said, but fear restrains you. It anchors you to the shore. When you are to be out in the deep with me, leading you to all kinds of riches and blessings, tethered to the shore is not my plan. There is so much to explore, so much for me to show you. Release, son. Release your fear. Release your grip. I am good and I am safe for you. You can fully trust in me. Now believe me and take steps that you have feared to take. There is no reason to fear any step that is before you, and I can use each one to lead you into multiplication. Yet you dip your toe in and shrink back, refusing to dive in. I'm waiting. There is no reason to fear.
Amen.
So good. Let's stand. I really feel led to just pray over anybody in this room today who's really struggling with having the courage to persevere, who's having a struggle with, this is so hard. I feel like I'm going to die. Like, I feel like I can't, like you're in that descent, you're in that abyss. I don't think I can make it, or I'm so scared. Like, I know what I need to do, but I'm so scared. And the word that I have for you, and I want to pray over everybody, but over you guys specifically, is courage is not the absence of fear. Every person who becomes a hero is not brave because they don't have fear. They don't get the keys to hell because they're just not afraid of hell. They get those keys and they become brave because they do it when they are scared, out of their mind, scared. And when you do it, you conquer that fear. And then you know, okay, I can do it again. I can press through. I can do hard things. So I just want to pray over you guys. If you feel comfortable, just hold the hand of the person next to you, because I just want to pray over each other. And if this is for you, just receive it. Father, I just pray for courage to persevere. Father, I pray for stamina. I pray for energy. I pray for just the willingness to take the next step. And I see a lot of people here where it just seems like it's completely dark ahead of them, but all that there's light on is just the next step. And that's okay. And I hear the Father saying, I'm leading you. I'm holding your hand. I've got you. I've got your back and I've got the front. Just follow me. Just take the next step. If that's all that you can do, you don't have to know the end. You don't have to know the end, because I have the end and it's good. He's already in the end and it's good. You survived this. You actually are going to thrive. So Father, I just pray for courage in the midst of fear. Father, that people would anchor themselves in your love, and that your love would drive out the fear, but that your love would also give them the courage that's needed to just take the next step, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. And I'm now seeing that the reason that I felt like people were supposed to hold hands is God wants you to know that you're not alone. You are not alone. And if you feel alone in taking the next step, ask somebody to be alongside you. Say, hey, can you do this with me? Can you just hold space for me? Can you just be with me? Because I just need to know that I'm not alone. And Father, I just pray that as a body, that we would do a good job of just supporting each other, of being there for each other, of walking through hard things together and becoming heroes together, that we're a body full of heroes. That we are a family full of heroes, full of mothers and fathers who have become mothers and fathers because we have not stayed comfortable. And I just see the Father just giving an invitation to anybody who is too comfortable right now. Saying you're going to be comfortable, or you're going to be uncomfortable one way or another. So how about you hold my hand and we walk through this together? How about we choose this?
Greater levels of peace.
So Father, we just trust you. We trust you with our destinies, with our potential. And we take the step forward we choose in our own will to actually take the next step into the hero's journey. Trusting that what's on the other side is greater hope and joy than we've ever experienced before. So Father, we just thank you. We speak your blessing over people. We say no to any attacks on people's minds trying to bog them down or trying to tell them that their situation is unique, that their situation is the one that they actually will die. Because that's a lie. So, Father, we trust you, and we're excited for the heroes that are being made right now. We speak your blessing over every person here in Jesus' name. Amen.